Hey guys, so we're going to be talking about the American colonies today. Um, if you realize that I'm making all these recordings on the same day, then the same thing applies. Um, I have the twins here, so if they win a game or don't win a game, they're playing PBS Kids right now. They might yell, be happy, or not be. So if you hear any of that in the background, we're just multitasking today. It's all good. So the American colonies, we're going to talk about how they get their independence, but let's talk a little bit about the colonies. You'll cover this more in American History 1, so this will be brief and good. If the slides will move. All right, there it goes. All right, so fill in your notes with these. You're just basically putting in the terms. I wanted to give you some brief definitions. A colony is a group of people in one place that are ruled by a country elsewhere. So England is known at this time, if you remember your world history, to have the sun never setting on its empire. It has colonies set up all the way around the world. The American Revolution will be the first time a colonial group of people actually overthrow the colonizers than this large of a scale. After this, you'll see revolutions pop up all over the world, and I know world history probably got shut down in the spring before this came up. So this is going to just be a prelude to the American Revolution, and then leads into things like the French Revolution and different islands revolting from other colonizers at this time. So a charter is a written document granting land and authority to set up colonial governments or a corporation. A compact is also an agreement or contract between groups of people. So we have the Mayflower Compact. It will set up and establish a direct democracy where all the men on the ship sign it and say they are pledging their allegiance still to the king, but that they are going on land and that they will all vote for things and what kind of government they are setting up. So in colonial America, you'll have different groups. Many of them came over here for religious freedoms. You have the Puritans. They wanted to purify the Church of England by eliminating objectionable aspects of worship. So they did not agree to all the sacraments and rituals, and they just wanted to purify the church. However, this will lead into the Salem witch trials, which will also go into greater detail in American History 1 with. So they feel like some of the devil and other aspects are behind a lot of their problems and misfortunes. So a group of young girls will start accusing people of being witches, which is also a thing that is going on in England and Europe at this time. So this is not some random, let's just have a witch trial. So there will be people burned at the stake for this, and finally they rein it all in and go, this is too much and this is ridiculous, and those will end. Separatists, they did not believe the Church of England could be changed. So they wanted to change or separate from it. These will be your pilgrims. They'll come over on the Mayflower. They want to worship in a simple manner with all the rituals and symbols of the church also, and just wanted freedom of choice on what to do. Quakers will be a religious society of friends that will be set up by William Penn in Pennsylvania. It's a loose-knit religious or spiritual movement founded in England. People who are dissatisfied with the existing denominations and groups of Christians. They are going to be more open to other people joining their colony, even if they are not liked by other colonies because they don't go to church enough or whatever they're doing. The American Indians obviously are going to be in colonial America, for good and bad, for both sides on that. So they help some of the colonies and the colonists survive. And then in return, sometimes the colonists would help them to destroy an enemy or do different various things to other groups of Indians. So there's a give and take on that end. William Penn will found the province of Pennsylvania. The democratic principles that he set forth served as inspiration to the U.S. Constitution. A couple different types of colonies. You could establish joint stock colonies, and that's all messed up. But they would be by corporations. So a corporation is a big company, and a joint stock colony would come over here and help provide some of the goods that they would need to have for their corporation. You have proprietary colonies that are owned by a family. These families can make their own laws and hire their own leaders. You have royal colonies that are founded by a king, and then the king would appoint their leaders. You have indentured servants, and you've already had an ed puzzle that mentioned these and asked you what they were, and some of you said slaves, and they really aren't. Here's the difference: is indentured servants would have someone pretty much pay for them for their passage and voyage to the new colonies, because in England, if you were born into a group of people, you pretty much stayed there. So if you were a servant on a manor in different places, or you had a low-level job in the city, there wasn't really a way to work your way out of that. So if you came over and let someone pay for your trip over, then you worked for them for an allotted amount of time to pay off your trip. So it's like a loan with you serving them until that loan is paid. So that's pretty much the concept of indentured servants. The House of Burgesses will be our first representative democracy and assembly in the colonies. They will have 2 men from each community in Jamestown come and meet, and they would vote on things. As I said, the Mayflower Compact will be our direct democracy. All the men will vote or sign the document. The Massachusetts Constitution will set up a government into 3 branches with equal power, so we establish our separation of powers. Montesquieu is going to be the main person behind all this. Obviously, he's not here doing this in Massachusetts, but his Enlightenment thoughts of separation of powers in 3 branches will influence this, and we will have the legislative, executive, and judicial. Patrick Henry, before the House of Burgesses, there's a painting showing him talking to them about how they should go about breaking away. Fundamental Orders of Connecticut, created in 1639 by 3 town settlements along Connecticut River. Authority is given by all free men living in each town, and it will be the first state constitution. So town meetings are a gathering of local citizens to discuss and vote on important issues. We don't have as many town meetings today. There are some town halls, but the people normally do not all get a vote. Salutary neglect. When England left the colonies alone to run themselves, but during this time they also provided profit for England. So I like to describe this a little bit better as like a teenager. So let's say when you were younger, you didn't require a lot of discipline or interaction from your parents saying you can't do this, and they didn't provide much structure because you were a pretty good kid and didn't need it. Now all of a sudden you become a teenager, and now you start doing some crazy things. And so now they really start trying to put restrictions on you. The main thing you're going to do is rebel. So this is what salutary neglect is. So the colonies were kind of left to themselves to run themselves for a while. And then all of a sudden, England, after the French and Indian War, is going to need money and profit from them. And so then they're going to come in and act upon and put restrictions on. And a lot of these people had never even lived in England. They'd only lived in the colonies and were born and raised in the colonies. And so this will cause that knee-jerk kind of reaction of that they need to rebel now. Mercantilism is the theory a country should sell more goods to other countries than it buys. This will be the policy of England. This actually is a really good policy. It keeps you making money and out of debt. However, it did not help the colonies in any way. So here's a breakdown of what kind of groups of people lived where and what the New England, Middle, and Southern colonies are known for, and actually the colony names that are in each different group. So you need to take a good look over that. That'll show up later. And like knowing where farming and weaving takes place, knowing where fishing and not good soil and weather is. So you need to know where these things are located. All right, slavery. Where people are bought and sold and treated as property. This happens in every country pretty much around the world at some point in history. That doesn't make it acceptable. That makes it as something that is a part of history and has happened. Middle Passage is the part of the triangular trade where the slaves are moved from Africa to the American colonies. Apart from that, you will have other triangular routes running around them where they take lumber and goods and food and stuff from one place to another, and animals, and trade out rifles and rum and different things. So all of these things traded in a big triangle, and the Middle Passage in between will be where the slaves come from and are sold. So this is basically what your colonies look like. Like I said, it's very brief because the main thing you're going to do with this will be in American history, and we're just the setup point for all of this. And then this leads into the actions and activities that will lead to the American Revolution, which is the next set of notes. And from there, we'll lead into all our major documents. So the Declaration of Independence, the Articles of Confederation, and the Constitution will be our next major things we talk about.